Welcome back, gentlemen. We are back. Rugby Scoop Pod. A bit of a delay there, gentlemen. Hope we didn't keep you waiting for too long. What a weekend. Lots to cover this weekend. Obviously, URC upsets. Welsh teams with a sweep. This is probably the first time that's happened in URC since the start of this current version of this competition. But Hugh, maybe you might correct me. But anyway, kicking off things, guys. Hugh, Griffin, how are you doing, bro? How was the weekend? And obviously, probably gardening again, if I'm not mistaken. I'm kidding.
Yeah. I did. Yes, I was doing a bit of gardening. I had another go at the patio. The second time was a lot better than the first. And I got to do a bit more mowing out in the front, making the most of the nice weather. I've got my Fiji training top on, trying to channel the power of Texi Canivere into taking on the weeds in my back garden. It's not helping so far, but I'm sure if I stick with it, if I think about him enough, then I'll become strong like him.
All right, fair enough. Jade, technical difficulties in Bloemfontein. Yeah, I think he still has more difficulties over there. But anyway, we'll kick things off. I think this time around, we'll kick things off with URC. There's so much to cover within this particular aspect. I think there's one more weekend left within URC. Blue Bulls doing very well and now back at number 2 after we probably put them under the pump last weekend in terms of the conversations we had regarding Blue Bulls. But let's kick it off with the Welsh sweep. Hugh, take us through the Welsh sweep this weekend. How good?
It wasn't quite a Welsh sweep. The Dragons still lost, but that's only because they were playing against another Welsh team. So,
yeah. I saw that.
So, honestly, as a Scarlets fan, delighted. Zebra are the worst team in the league, to be honest. And watching the game, a lot of the people were commenting, this is 2 bad teams. But fortunately, the Scarlets were less bad than Zebra. I think we've got our back row balance is figured out, which is, a big thing to say because Veer Fafita wasn't playing. And Veer Fafita is probably our most talented player. But with the balance with Plumtree, who we got from, I think it was either Auckland or Canterbury. I think Auckland, it was. And then Tuipulotu, who wears the number 8, and on our put-in at the scrum, he scrums at 8. On our put-in, Plumtree scrums at 8. On opposition put-in, Tuipulotu scrums at 8. And that's quite interesting. And then Dan Davies at the number 7 jersey, I think is the nice balance. So the question is, what do you do with Fafita moving forward? Alex Craig and Sam Lousy, who have been our 2 second rows, have been outstanding. So where does Fafita drop in when he's back available? I think if we have one of Lousy or Fafita or Plumtree on the bench, I think that's incredible player to be able to bring off the bench there. In terms of Cardiff, Sharks put out, it wasn't even a B team. I don't know what kind of team that was. But Cardiff did the job over them. Cardiff rotated a lot as well, and playing down in South Africa. This is a team that hasn't won at all yet in 2024. So it's nice to see them get over the line. Only had one fit scrum half. Ben Thomas, who's been playing at Central all season, had his first run out at 10. It was the first time anybody who wasn't Tinas de Beer has started a game at 10 for Cardiff this season. Had a very good game by all accounts. So that was nice to see. And then the Ospreys getting the job done, in a pretty okay-ish fashion against the Dragons, to be honest. Dragons, 20 penalties conceded. It's just unbelievable. Dragons, sometimes you question whether they actually want to win because the mistakes they make are so terrible. Ospreys, to be honest, 4 tries with the squads on paper, probably the bare minimum, to be honest, for the Ospreys team playing at home with the talent, especially in the pack that they had. But, job done, move on. So for those teams, Ospreys are the only ones in with a chance of getting the playoffs. If they do get to the playoffs, they'll probably be in 8th. And I believe that they could still lose the Champions Cup spot to the Sharks if the Sharks beat Gloucester in the Challenge Cup final. So we're managing to find excitement between us.
Oh yeah, fair enough. But I mean, looking at the current log of the URC, that is, I mean, we have Edinburgh on 49, Benetton on 49, Lions on 49. So Connacht, I don't think they will go through. So anything from 10th position all the way to 16, there's really no chance for playoffs. But Lions, Benetton, and Edinburgh on that final weekend will be a big. That'll make a big difference into who goes into the playoffs within this regard. But looking at Leinster and Ulster over the weekend, I mean, that was a surprise. Did you get to watch a game?
I did get to watch the game. I was really impressed by the intensity. It was a very high quality game, I thought. Not high scoring, but very high quality, especially at this time of year. That's unusual because the weather is so nice that teams tend to just, like, the heat, I think, goes to the heads and they start playing crazy rugby sometimes. But it was good to see a very high quality game. Leinster rotated a lot, although they still had some big players in there, like Hugo Keane and Jack Cohn and Cian Healy, for instance, Ronan Gallagher as well. But Ulster played a very strong team, and it was, like I said, a 1-point victory. The crowd was so up for it. It was great to see the crowd getting really into it in Ulster. Really a passionate, feisty derby where Leinster have found themselves third in the log. So if they get to a semi-final, they could find themselves going away from home, which is not where they want to be. And they could. We'll get on to next week later on, but there's a chance. It's probably unlikely, but there's a chance they could slip down to 4th. So it's fun. The URC is really fun at the moment.
Yeah, but their last game is against Connacht. I don't think that'll be a difficult game for them.
They're not going to lose that. But it will be the week after the Champions Cup final, so you never know.
Oh, yeah, true.
What kind of team they'll put out.
And the injuries that might come out of the final as well. So, yeah, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens there in the coming weeks. Jade, can you hear us? Earth to Bloemfontein. No, I think Jade is having real problems today, unfortunately. But also looking at the Lions against the Warriors. I mean, last week we spoke about nobody talking about the Warriors in this competition. But, I mean, after playing well against the Blue Bulls the previous week, and this week, I mean, it was a close game. I mean, in that first half, I think it was like 7-8 or 7-5 or something like that. But up until like the 55th minute, then obviously the fatigue came in, the high felt. I mean, the Lions started running a bit more. Brilliant try scored by the Lions during that game. I mean, the Lions are really showing up, guys, at this point or at this time of the competition, which is pretty cool. What are your thoughts regarding that game?
The Lions, I think, are the biggest test of your rugby IQ as a team and as a coaching staff in the URC, because they play all the things that you normally need to be good in rugby are bad for playing the Lions. You don't want to have the ball, and you don't want to have territory against the Lions, because their identity is counter-attack. Their identity is transition, turn you over, run from deep. When Munster went down there and got a really confident victory against them, Munster said, you have the ball, and we don't want to carry it, and if we get the ball, we're going to kick it. We're not interested in having the ball against you. And it worked, and it completely dismantled the Lions' game plan. So if you look at like the Lions wins, they have like 35% possession in territory in the games that they win, but they still win it. And the game against Connacht, they had a man sent off as well and had pretty much the same performance. Yeah. And the other good thing that goes for the Lions is their cohesion is really good at the moment. I think they've used the fewest players of anyone in the URC. So it means that they're so comfortable with each other and how they're playing now. So Glasgow, I think, disappointed. They needed to be a bit more street smart in that game. For them to not at least get 4 tries, I think, is a big underperformance. You can excuse maybe them losing, but not getting the 4 tries, that's disappointing from them. So, but Lions to be in with a chance of finishing in the top 8 is a fantastic performance. I think they deserve all the credit.
So who are they playing? Let's have a look at who they play.
Stormers away.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Testing.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Now, I wanted to add on to that because I caught bits about chatting about the Lions. And the thing that impressed me a lot about the Lions yesterday, I think they scored 6 tries, right? And 5 of them was 14 men. So, and look at from where they scored. A lot of them were long ranges, right? A lot of them, it wasn't really phase play. I think this was the last try that was, where they really camped in their 22. But it was from turnover ball, but from mistakes, and they really punished, Glasgow. You look at Edwin van der Merwe's performance yesterday. He's been putting in performances like this week in, week out. And I'm sure that, he has everything, the attributes this season. He's even got the scrum cap, to wear to get into the box squad as a winger, later on in the season. He's one of the guys that, upped his game. But I'm really impressed with him. When they do turn the ball over or when they do get ball from mistakes or from errors, they punish you. And it's exciting to watch. Unfortunately, we know that they don't have the squad and the depth, and some games, they weren't that good, they disappoint. But if you look at what Cash has had this season and all the problems he's had, I really think if you appoint it now, Cash should really be up there with one of the coaches of the season in this URC competition this year. He's really turned this team around against all odds. He has a lot of criticism this season and before, but look at the plays he had at his disposal. Look at the way the guys like Noamba, Van der Merwe, Warren, all of those guys in this team. Look what Cash did to this team. I really think that, he's really a contender for the coach of the season.
Yeah, but sticking with the Lions, guys, what changed? Because Noamba was at 9 before. I think as soon as he moved into that 10 position and Baby Faf was at 9, things changed for the team in terms of the go forward, Noamba was very tactical, was brilliant in orchestrating, in actually managing that forward pack. And that forward pack was also getting good go forward ball. Their carries were pretty good as a team as well. I think going in and playing at home as well. They haven't lost a lot of games at home. I think that's one thing that has also maybe given them a chance into getting into the playoffs as well. So I think maybe the structure around the fly half position is one of the key instruments to the current success that the Lions have seen this season. I don't know, you looking at the stats, obviously, that you've covered over the past couple of months within the Lions aspect. What do you make of the Lions as a team as well?
I think they've got a simple game plan. They stick to it, and they've got the same players doing it every week. Like I said, with the cohesion, they defensively solid and counter-attack, and like you say, run from deep and express themselves. So I think they're happy playing the game plan. It seems like a happy camp, and I think they know what they're doing. It's simple. That I actually have a feeling that probably next season unless they evolve, they might get found out a little bit. Because teams will go and say, there's a playbook of how to play against the Lions. For whatever reason, teams have been naive this season, but next season, I think people might learn. But just Lions fans, be happy while you can, because I know it's tough for you guys sometimes. So just live it up while you're getting the good times.
Yeah, Jade, see you back.
Just back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
We're just asking, obviously, the question was, what has changed for that team? And I shared a bit about Noamba being at 10 has also been part of the change within the squad itself. But what have you seen from your observation within the Lions setup?
if you look at the team and you look at the way the guys they got there, they've got a lot of guys that moved to Joburg or to that region that has been out of favor at other teams. And for some reason, they became a happy camp, you always have guys like maybe Nwamba, Ibu van der Merwe. Okay, he went a little bit earlier, but there's a few guys in there that were second string at the Bulls or second choice at the Sharks. And, they had that negativity around them. But when they went to the Lions, their attitude changed and they became a team, their cohesion. So I think for me, as the mental aspect as well is up. Cash really had to give credit to him for that, changing the mental aspect. Their attitude changed, and from there they went on. They're positive. Everything they do, even in their defeats, ball 1 or 2 games, they've been positive on the field. They stuck to their game plan and they stuck together. Twice a season, they conceded a red card early in the game. And they came out on top. And that just shows you that this team sticks together. And when their backs against the wall, they fight. Now, watch what happened is our voodoo and our curse on the show, the Lions will lose against the Storm in 2 weeks' time. Because every time on the show, we praise a team. And next week, boom, they lose. So, yeah.
No, fair enough. But on the Leinster side, I've noticed that this season they really haven't traveled quite well. Even now, within the Ulster game itself, coming to South Africa, obviously they left players at home, but last season, even when they left players at home, they came away with points from South Africa, and when they traveled within Europe, they came away with points. But maybe, do you think at this point now there's too much pressure for the youth or the second stringers? Because now, obviously, their first stringers are saved up for the final of the Investec Championship. But now the pressure with the second stringers is starting to pile up, seeing the results that we've seen in this particular month.
It's a good question. I think the problem that Leinster are having is that they've got this distraction of Europe, and I do think Europe is a distraction from league rugby at this point. They're trying to rotate like they normally do, but unfortunately at this time of the season when most clubs are don't have anything to play for apart from the league, they're coming up against everybody's first choice team now. So it means that when their fully rotated side could do a job against the weaker teams in the league and their kind of peers half rotated side. Now they're coming up against the top 6 teams in the URC's first teams, and now it's starting to become narrow losses, because it is still narrow losses, let's be honest about it, but it's just a case of you're seeing the difference now. So look, Leinster lost 3 of their last 4 in the URC. Not very often you can say that.
True. Jade, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think also they focus. They've got this, monkey on their back with the Heineken Cup or the Investec Cup. So, that's always been their focus as a club, their main focus to win that competition. And you can clearly see that they have one eye on the final next week. So I'll give that to them, in terms of maybe they focus on the final. But then again, you can't disrespect this competition as well. You've got to have that balance in this between the 2 squads. So, that Murphy's Law comes into play here. And I really think that, their focus is on next week for the game against Toulouse, because that's a massive game. And it will be 3 finals in a row that they lose. If you add the last one, so they would have lost the last 4 finals they played in European competition. So for me, they want that record. So I'll give that benefit of the doubt to them and say, listen, okay, let's see how they go next week, and after that, how they take this competition. But then again, you can't also always focus like that, because a few years in a row they've been caught with their pants down in this competition in a knockout round. So yeah, let's see how they go next week, and let's see after that how they take this competition seriously.
Fair enough. Okay, now basically looking at the log again, Hugh, who do you see in the final top 8 within this competition?
We know the top 4. I think Stormers is safe. I can see the Stormers losing at home to the Lions, but I can't see them picking up nothing. So I think Stormers will be there. I think Ulster will be there. Ulster have got a tough final game against Munster, but I think they've got nothing to worry about in terms of being overtaken. Benetton and Connacht, we pretty much know. Sorry, Benetton and Edinburgh, we pretty much know only one of those will be there come the end of the season because they're playing each other last game of the season. That is a huge game. Edinburgh are a weird team. Anybody who has watched Edinburgh, well, what you do, the Edinburgh process is you look at their team and you go, wow, Edinburgh have got an amazing team on paper. And then you watch them play and you go, oh my God, these guys are terrible. This is an awful team. They don't know what they're doing. And then you look at the log and you go, oh my God, they've won 11 games out of their 17. So they're actually good. So no one can figure out whether Edinburgh are any good or not. So Benetton should beat Edinburgh at home. They should. The thing that counts against Benetton is they've just travelled back up from South Africa, but they do have a week off, so that helps. If Benetton were playing in the Challenge Cup final this weekend, I would imagine they'd lose to Edinburgh. But because they're not, I think Benetton are probably favourites for that. Ospreys can make it. Ospreys need for results to go in their favour for them to make it. But those results aren't massively unlikely. They need Cardiff to get thumped by Leinster. Could easily happen. They themselves need to get a bonus point win against Cardiff. Could easily happen. And then they need, I think, Lions to get nothing away at Stormers, which is completely possible. And then, as we said, we know that one of either Benetton or Edinburgh are going to lose. So it's not out of the question for Ospreys. They've got an advantage because they're playing someone below them, whereas all the teams above them are playing teams very near them. So that's what makes it interesting. So for me, I could tell you down to 7th. I'm not sure I can tell you the 8th spot.
Fair enough. Jade, are you currently looking at this particular log? I mean, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, there's a big chance the Blue Bulls could actually be the number 1 team by the final weekend of this competition. Crazy.
Crazy, and then we just slated them last week and said they threw everything away and they're back in the game. I mean, I don't know what the Sharks' ambition would be in that last game. I don't know what team they'll put in them. Maybe they'll still be hungover if they do win this weekend, so let's see. But for me, I think the top 4, like you said, is sorted. But Stormers should be there. I think Ulster will sneak in because I see Ulster has in the last game, last round they play Munster, so they might get nothing there as well. But anyway, for me, I think the Lions has to beat the Stormers. But here's the trick: do you, as John Dobson, go into that game and rest a few guys, leading up into the playoff games, or do you go and pick a stronger team because they got off this weekend, and then if you're going to give those guys off again, it'll be 2 weeks off going into the knockouts. Don't you think they deserve a hit before they go out into the knockouts? So, yeah, I'm not sure what team Dobson will put out there, but I think the Stormers will put a strong team out there. So, for me, the Lions has to win that game. The Lions win, they through. Lions beat the Stormers, they through because Edinburgh and Benetton plays each other. I think it's a little bit too difficult for the Ospreys to get through because I think either one of Edinburgh or Benetton in that game will get a bonus point, or the Lions will get a bonus point against the Stormers. So I think for Ospreys, I think it's a bridge too far for them. But for me, the Lions has to win the Stormers. If they beat the Stormers, they through, and then they'll play the top team.
I heard what you said about John Dobson's approach, what it would be going into that final week. But now I'm thinking Blue Bulls have the same dilemma, or Jake White. Could he also rest a few players for that last weekend? Because the weekend after that is playoffs, and they've got nothing to lose. They're in regardless.
They've got to try and finish first.
Yeah, they've got to try.
Glasgow have got Zebra at home. Glasgow are going to put 40-50 on Zebra. So
what if they're traveling from South Africa, by the way, Glasgow?
But they've got
they got a week off, so I mean they're not hiking.
Zebra are terrible. Zebra are the worst team in the league. So the Bulls, you've got to go for it. You've got to try and get that top 2 because that makes a huge world of difference. You don't want to be travelling away to Ireland for your semi-final. You need to get that home semi-final.
And I also think Munster goes full strength against Ulster because they would want to end above Leinster. They know, the difference that home ground advantage makes if they do get Leinster in the final, and that's their big chance. And obviously they Leinster would be maybe they win next week. Be arrogant. They won the European competition, and Munster would always want to get the one above them and on top of the URC to play at home. But yeah, like you said, the Glasgow, I expect them to go to 65. The Bulls, they have to go out and they got to try and finish. They can finish second. That's it, the Bulls in their court, so they can beat the Sharks by 5 points and they can get a home semi-final.
Tough. Anyway, gentlemen, then moving right along, we've got Sam Cane retiring. Jade, talk to me.
Okay. Sam Cane, obviously, unfair criticism he gets, or the comparison, because he was number 7 and the open side, and also not also the captain, but he was the open side that replaced Richie McCaw. And they are completely two different types of rugby players. You can't compare the two. Sam Cane is a rugby player, warrior, good leader, one of the quiet guys on the field. He came back after a horrific neck injury. I think that was when in 2017 or 2018. Back, a few years later, was made captain of the All Blacks. At the time, he was appointed captain. Yes, a lot of people argue and say that he's not the best captain, but it's not who's going to turn down the captaincy when it's offered to you. No rugby player would turn down the captaincy when it's offered to you, and I think he did a good job. He did an okay job. If you just look at that quarterfinal against Ireland, I think it was the best performance he had in the black jersey. So yeah, for me, Sam Cane, a true warrior, true professional. We spoke about it last week on the pod about what he brings, and I think there was conversations held between him and Razor, and the respectful way, for Razor just to, okay, we'll give you the year, you'll be in the squad. Also, notably that there's not a lot of experience in that squad in terms of, they lost a lot of players in the White Locks and Retalix and those guys, so he needed experience. So Sam Cane, I expect him to be in the All Black squad. More in the background, he won't play that much, he won't start, but I expect him to be there just for that experience with a new crop, just to help guys settle in. And he's on 95 caps. Let's see if he can get to 100. He'll deserve it. He hasn't been the most outspoken rugby player or flashy rugby player, but that guy put his body on the line week in, week out for the Chiefs and for the All Blacks.
Fair enough. But murmurs, as JK would say, what is that thing? Voce de corridor. Hugh, do you think it's probably, I don't know, not warranted, but do you think it's probably true that maybe there was a phone call between Razor and Sam Cane that led to this decision that he will retire by the end of the season?
I don't know, honestly. It's believable. It's feasible. I don't know if I believe it's the likely outcome. I think Sam Cane would have been doing well to get picked. I think if he's picked on reputation within the coaches. He's obviously not picked on public perception, but he's picked on having been the captain that took the All Blacks to a World Cup final, and having been there for so long. He's obviously not been. He's moved to Japan and he's not even playing in Japan.
Yeah.
So it'd be tough to pick. And like we've said, with like Hoskins, Satusi coming through, and we had the chat last week about moving Surveyor to 7.
Yes.
He's probably not in the team, so I can imagine it's a call by Razor if had a chance. Said, look, mate, you're not. I'm going to appoint a new captain, and you're not going to start. And then has that made him think, okay, then, well, how badly do I want this anymore? Maybe that's more the way it went.
No, fair. I mean, we spoke about options that what the back three might look like, the back rowers, Jade. But, I mean, also in terms of the injuries that Sam Cane has had to endure during his career. And currently, as we speak, he's got a back injury, And as a coach, let's make you Razor for this particular 1 minute, Jade. But he's been injury prone for probably the past 5 years. Every single season, he's had to miss out maybe a couple of weeks every year. And maybe also that, I mean, as Razor would probably think, do I actually want a person that will lead the team, but half the time he might not be around?
So I'm Razor for 1 minute. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm cancelling David Avili's contract in New Zealand Rugby, and he's a free agent to go and play in Japan. So that's the first thing I'm Razor. But anyway, story for another day. Honestly, I think Razor has his own DNA and his own game plan in terms of his loose forwards. And if you're looking at the guys coming through at loose forward at New Zealand Rugby at the moment, you're looking at Peter Lakai, you're looking at Raiden Ayosi, you're looking at Dalton Papali, who's playing good rugby. Then you're looking at Billy Harmon, who's cracking it up week in, week out for the Highlanders. And I mean, he's in a losing team, but his stats is still running up. Running meters is high, everything is high. And if you're looking at the style of the open sides in New Zealand Rugby at the moment, they're all good carriers of the ball. They're all making meters. They're all making yards. Look at what Peter Laka does. Look what Dalton Papali does. Billy Harmon I mentioned. Sam Cane is not that player. He's not that kind of player. So for me, I don't think he fits into Razor's pattern as what pattern, what style he wants to play. So that's why I think, he had that conversation. And yes, there was conversations, because Razor should have had a few conversations with Sam Cane and those guys in Japan, because he hasn't been there or hasn't been watching them, closely like watching New Zealand guys. So yeah, if I'm Razor at the moment, I go with what I have in Super Rugby, because there is quality loose forwards, and you're getting Adi Savia back as well. And also, like I always said, the loosies that are coming through now are not, how can I say, lig in the broek. They're not light. They're hard. They can mix and match. They bring physicality. So for me, if I'm Razor, and I'm not going to pick him. I gave my loose forward trio last week, and I'll stick with that. Moving Adi over to open side, if you give Hoskins a go, or Dalton Papali or Peter Lakai get looking at open side.
Fair enough. But then now looking at, I know we spoke a bit about the back rowers, but also in terms of captaincy, who are you going with going forward in terms of or Barrett? Or do you look into a younger person like your Dalton, who's going to play for another, 6 to 7 years? Because I don't see Adi continuing after 5 years at least, or post or beyond 2027 in terms of international, unless he's really ambitious in getting maybe 100 caps or 100 plus caps as well. Maybe he can go in well into 2031 with the All Blacks. What do you think in terms of captaincy for the season?
Scoop, what? And you as a coach as well, you got to look at your leadership group that you have, not just your captain. If you got to look at your core leadership group, Siya Kolisi's been one of the best captains, of the bulk jersey, but it's your leadership group that carries you through. So looking at big moments in the World Cup, there was guys like Dwayne in 2019, Andre Pollard, Bongi Mbanambi. Those guys stepped up. Even when you had Richie McCaw there, you had Kevin Mayalamu, you had Kieran Reid, you had Dan Carter, Conrad Smith, those guys. So you're looking at this All Black team now, and it's a complete new leadership group they have to bring in. So I'm thinking the leadership group of 5 guys will probably be Jody Barrett, Scott Barrett, maybe you get TJ Perenara in there, and then Cody Taylor and Adi Savia. I'm thinking those are the 5, the leadership group that is there. Obviously, you would want your first 5 also in there being a part of the leadership group. So I'm looking at that leadership group needs to be strong for your captain to prosper, I've seen a lot of times with Adi Savia. I love him as a rugby player, but when he was a captain for the Hurricanes, he gets into the game too much that he makes the incorrect call. Now, obviously, you get better at those situations. And then Scott Barrett as well, he's also got a discipline problem. Will he stay on the field for the full 80? So it's between the two of them. Maybe outside, the dark horse in this race could be a guy like Cody Taylor, who has captained the Crusaders before. Under Razor, he could be one, that they could look at. But yeah, I would go with Adi because of the respect he has in the team currently, but he's going to need help with a strong leadership group because he does make a lot of mistakes as a captain. He did that before with the Hurricanes, making the wrong decision at times. So yeah, I'll go with Adi, but don't rule out a guy like Cody Taylor, to get the leadership group, because Also, remember, Cody Taylor took a long sabbatical now. So he's fresh coming in. So maybe there was conversations held also between him and Razor. Go and take a lengthy break, get away from rugby because there'll be a lot of pressure coming into you now. So maybe he's the one. You never know.
Wow, spanner in the works here. Cody Taylor, who would have thunk it? Hugh, who do you think, from your perspective, after seeing the All Blacks under Fozzie and seeing the current player crop that they have at their disposal? I mean, so for you, who pops out of these names that Jade has thrown into this box?
I like the Cody Taylor shout. I think that's a good one. I'm tempted by that because before I heard Jade say that, I was kind of on the Scott Barrett page, but it's a great point about his discipline. I think you have to pick someone who's playing in New Zealand now. I know RD is coming back, but I would pick someone who's playing in New Zealand now, and then you've got the Crusaders link with who Razor knows. So I think the Crusaders are rubbish. That's the other thing. So yeah, okay, yeah. Cody, Jay's talked me into it.
You had to sneak in the Crusaders' current form at the moment. Anyway, speaking of the Crusaders, let's jump in quickly, Jade, on Super Rugby this particular weekend. For me personally, I couldn't get to watch a bit because I was out there in The Hague voting. It took us 4 hours to actually get to vote. Crazy lines. But anyway, I mean, for me, I watched a bit of the Crusaders and Brumbies game. Got a bit irritated and annoyed by certain things that I saw on the pitch. But my highlight would be the Drua versus Reds game for this particular weekend. I don't know what your overall analysis is on the weekend, but yeah, take us through what you thought and which game for you stood out, because don't tell me the Auckland Blues and Highlanders. I mean, that's a walkover.
Now, look, even the Moana Hurricanes game wasn't a bad watch. I think Moana made a few stupid mistakes in that game, as usual. But yeah, the Drua Reds game was a good game. The first half was brilliant. Gosh, I hope Gillespie gave Fulivalu the biggest slap he had in his life, because
twice
the same thing. But anyway, it was. I think for a team like Fiji in Drua, I think they needed that result, and I think we need in Drua to make the top 8. Evans was ahead of the Crusaders, but the Crusaders Brumbies was a good watch as well. I feel for the Crusaders. That was one game I felt for them. I mean, they had 2 tries disallowed. I think the one of Favoris, the forward pass, and then the Havili, not Havili, McNichol, the try that he knocked it on when he got in. That was, for me, killer moments for them. They had no luck. And then again, close to the buzzer, stupid brain fart. I mean, we spoke a few weeks ago of your boy, Raviz Rayana, not waiting for the Hutu to go before he kicks. And then they lost the game. And then you have now Quentin Strange. I don't know what he tried there, slapping that balls. Strange decision. But positives from that game, I will touch on it because I really want you to touch on it as well, Scoop. Fletcher Newell, should we start, having big and serious conversations with this guy and Tyler Lomax, who we've been raving about? This guy's a machine at current time, and I can't wait for him and Oxenche to scrum up against each other. 2 shorties, hitting it up against each other. It's textbook. A guy told me the other day that I could prop. I got him in the gym. I won't mention names, but he's also a professional player, plays with Cheetahs. And he says, what he loves of Fletcher Newell is you can iron your shirt on his back. The way he scrum, his technique is so good. And he's just got better. And I think it's the influence Owen Franks has had in the squad, in terms of scrum time helping him. I really think, he's developing into a world-class tight head prop. I think in a few years' time, he will take over, from Furlong and Malherbe as that world-class number 3, because he's I think he squats 280 and he benches 250, something serious, ridiculous like that. He's a big boy, a strong boy, and he does well with the ball in hand. So really, Fletcher Newell want to watch his games picked up. Even Tyler Lomax is playing good rugby as well. But yeah, what's your thoughts on him? Because I know you've been watching him close in pre-season school.
Oh man, I think now thinking back to his debut at Ellis Park. He had a very good season with the Crusaders, obviously, in 2021, 2022. But then once, what's his name now? Jason Ryan was selected to assist Ian Foster. Jason Ryan did not think twice to bring this guy in. How old is he now? 22, 23, 24. He's not over 25 though. But I mean, a young boy who's never scrummed against a Malherbe or a Kitshoff before, Springboks well known to have very strong scrum, and he literally slotted into that All Black shirt at Ellis Park. I mean, how good is it to make your debut at Ellis Park against the world champions as well? But I mean, on Saturday, the Brumbies are known to have probably one of the strongest packs in Super Rugby, and to obliterate the Brumbies scrum like that. I mean, as he was dominant.
And James Slipper is he's no slouch, eh? He's
over 100 cap Australian prop, over 100 cap, and he was struggling. You could see it on his face. Every time there was a penalty against Slipper, the cameraman, I don't know why, but he just literally went into Slipper's face, and you could see that his mind is not in this game at all. And every time the Crusaders won a penalty, I like the fact that Cody Taylor still insisted on getting a scrum, because he knew that the Brumbies were under the pump. This is where maybe you get repeated infringements, you get repeated penalties, and now you can actually get one of their props off the field, right? So now they have
a free kick and get out of it.
Yeah, you can also then now get to scrum against 7, and you can still dominate some more. But nonetheless, Fletcher Newell, he's really one to watch going into this international season. And I just hope, man, we don't get any more injuries now. There's way too many injuries happening in New Zealand. So players being out for 3 to 4 weeks or 6 weeks, etc. But I'm happy that Fletcher is back. I'm happy that, what's his name, is also back, the loosehead, Williams. That he's also back. But I mean, the Crusaders have one thing that's good for them currently, if we are being honest. It's that forward pack. And their back line is just not adapting to getting that forward pack into good areas on the pitch. That's where they're currently struggling from what I see. And then it's just a little detail, as you've mentioned as well. Errors, elementary errors, Quentin Strange, elementary errors by Rivers Rehana. I mean, you can see the shot clock. I mean, there's not even a shot clock in Super Rugby, right? You can literally kick the ball on the buzzer and then it's game over. But I mean, it's the small little things that when to pass and when not to pass. I mean, I look at David Havili. There was one line break. Instead of holding on to the ball, I mean, he was 10 meters away from the try line. He wanted to make a pass while being tackled, and is in the air and the ball goes forward. And I'm like, if you hang on to this ball, we can consolidate, have a ruck. We're in good position. We've got good momentum. The Brumbies are on the back foot. We get the ball out the deck. 1, 2, 3 passes. Stephen Rees will definitely be somewhere loitering around, and you have a better opportunity of scoring a try. I mean, those 50-50 passes, I mean, those are coach killers at the end of the day. It's just way too many errors, and I feel like now they're on this path of not believing in themselves. Yes, they go out there to win, but as soon as a team starts scoring against them, you can see their heads go down. Because I mean, the Brumbies scored tries against the run of play, literally in that whole game. And as soon as it was all from Crusaders' errors, like a knock on or losing a line out, etc. And then the Brumbies will just punish them and score tries. And Lelosio was also just good with the boot, so it was always 7 points, turns into 14, turns into 21. And I mean, at the end of the day, it was still good to see them come back. But Crusaders, I don't know what to say anymore. They probably can't wait for the season to be over. So there's 2 more weekends of Super Rugby, and they just need a break from rugby and a holiday, and then come back fresher next season. But your thoughts on the other games as well? I mean, Highlanders, that was a walkover for them.
Yeah, but Chiefs Rebels was a good watch, and I actually think, the Rebels, when the Chiefs got a late penalty to win that game, and it's arguably or possibly the last ever game, Super Rugby game for the home game for the Rebels. Looks like it, because I think they won't be there next year. They had a good game against the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs also, again, being typical of the Chiefs, not putting the game away, allowing the Rebels to stay and hang in there. And they got back into the game and, they almost won it at the end. And then the other game also, we spoke about the Blues and the Highlanders, the Canes and Moana as well. They rotated around, but it was a good game to watch. So overall, it's super. It looks like the top four is really settled and, dusted. It just depends who will end, in the top three positions of the four, because both the Canes and the Blues still have to play the Chiefs. So that's a big game. The Chiefs has a lot to say in who ends top. And then, the Brumbies is there as well lurking. So if the Blues do slip up against either the Crusaders or the Chiefs, there's a possibility, that the Brumbies can end second, or first, if depending on what the Canes do. So going into last week, we'll have to see who gets that 8th spot, because I think the Highlanders will end 7th most likely, and then the 8th spot most probably between the Force and the Drua, but it looks like the Drua at the moment. So I think that's all set with Super Rugby this weekend.
Yeah. Looking at the log, I also don't see too much change happening over the couple of weeks. Highlanders, yes, they'll probably sneak in, and Drua will also probably sneak in there. It'll just stay at the same. Blues number 1, Hurricanes 2, Brumbies 3, Chiefs 4, Reds 5, Rebels. I mean, the Rebels started off slowly, but now they really solidified their position within this top 8. And then Highlanders, I mean, at one point, the Highlanders were like 11th, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago. And out of nowhere, they've managed to get into 7th spot. And then Fiji Drua, I would really like to see them get into another playoffs again. Back-to-back playoffs would really bode well for their inclusion into this competition as well. And it's probably the most difficult place in to go play against the Drua at home. I've seen so many teams struggle, and they've beaten the Waratahs, they've beaten the Crusaders, they've beaten the Reds. Yes, unfortunate against the Hurricanes, who are quite strong this season. All right, gentlemen, now moving along into our final conversation for this chat. As usual, we've got a series just for the people that are new. We have a series at every episode. So basically, the series is about just understanding the DNA or the template of each country, what type of rugby they've played over the years, and are they still implementing that, or have they tweaked those particular elements, fundamentals, their foundation? What is their rugby foundation built on the pitch, basically? And this week we are looking at the Irish and the Scottish. So Ireland and Scotland. Hugh, we're going to start off with you. Growing up, having watched Ireland for over the years, and to what you are seeing today, what would you say is the basic fundamentals of Irish rugby on the pitch for you over the past couple of years, or since whenever you started watching them? Talk to us.
So Ireland is interesting because when we talk about Ireland's attack now, we talk about it being aesthetically pleasing, and it is, but it's not All Black style, line breaks, running it in from 50 metres and things. They grind you down. It's not like a sword cutting through, a hot knife through butter type thing. It's more like a meat grinder, and they really just grind you into a dust. If you look at the carrying stats in the URC, and the provinces all play pretty similar to how Ireland play. Obviously, Leinster is an extreme example of that. High volume of carries, very, very high volume of carries. They carry maybe not twice as much as the South Africans, but 70, 80% more than the South Africans. It's about high possession, high volume of carries, not necessarily the flashy stuff. Their centres are extra back row forwards, I should say. And then the 10 is the general. It's, in terms of identity, they've developed a lot over the last 20 years. They were not very good for a very long time. And then since 2009, I think, was their first Grand Slam in 50 years or something like that, something crazy like that. So the recent period, they've become very efficient. I talk about Ireland as being a bit like the clone army, where they just keep coming and they're coming at you, and their players are all so similar that a lot of Irish fans won't like me saying that, but a lot of their players are quite similar, but they're very good, very high quality. It's just all about volume. It's all about a numbers game for Ireland, and it works. And it's why they are arguably the best team in the world at the moment. So their DNA is very, very, very high detail, yet simple as well. They're not reinventing the wheel here. They're not. I don't want to say they're not innovators, because they're innovating in their own way, but it's not like, wow, I've never seen a team do anything like this before. It's more like a very, very high quality watch or something like that. The cogs are all very high tolerances. It all meshes together. It's about the system for Ireland. It's all about the system over the individuals.
100%. You heard that, Scrumming Flower? The best team in the world, Ireland.
I said arguably the best team in the world.
No, he said the best team. Please put that snippet on. The best team. So let's have a few South Africans going on.
James, take us through your Irish thoughts.
Gosh, it's actually difficult because what is their DNA? We look at the current style now as being their DNA, because before the Joe Schmidt era, they never played, something similar to this. Andy Farrell's just picked up on. But I'm looking at, the way they're playing now. I can't tell you, but before that they had, Brian O'Driscoll and Keith Wood. It was a little bit different, it was more tactical. They had more of a tactical fly-off in Ronan O'Gara and, Eric Elwood before that. So what I do see in Ireland, and I do see the DNA that they're implementing across all age groups now, is ruck time, ruck speed, continuity, carrying, a lot of carries, a lot of rucks, quick clean out, body positions at ruck time, setting up playing from there, playing the situation, being patient on attack, patient on defense as well, ruck after ruck, loop around, inside balls, taking the ball at different angles, testing and really stretching your defense and tiring your defense and getting points. Also, what I do see with them now is you got to look at them. The way they did it now under Farrell is how they do set up with 5-meter lineouts or quick taps, in your red zone. As soon as Ireland gets into your red zone now with this current team, they punish you. But it hasn't always been like that. It's actually a difficult one, because if you look at the DNA that the team that plays now, and if you look at it 5 or 6, 7 years ago, it's been completely different, styles of play maybe. So yeah, that's their style of play now currently, like you said, carrying good carries, a lot of carries. They make a lot of carries. They carry the ball a lot. Body position, post-contact meters. Looking at guys over the ball, like your Dennis Bird, your Van der Vliers, all of those guys good over the ball in defense, both sides of the ruck as well. So yeah, that's Ireland at the moment. But like the Scooper said, it's difficult because this current DNA, has been now 5, 6, 7 years old. It hasn't been coming for generations, where the previous teams, the DNA has been set in from generation to generation.
Yeah, 100%. I fully agree. Because the teams that we've spoken about, we've grown up watching similar styles of play. Like the Irish one is quite difficult because, like you said, the era of the Keith Woods was totally different to what rugby is now in Ireland. And obviously with the inclusion of Nisafora, with the inclusion of Joe Schmidt, there's been a change in the way they've adapted to the game and the way they've developed into the game. I think for me, what I see from an Irish perspective is a lot of screen time or screen plays. Just the excess of that 9, 10, 12 combinations. They've really put in a lot of effort into that, and I see a lot of Nisafora into that particular type of play, because that's what he used to do when he was with the Brumbies at ACT in Australia, with Eddie Jones, So they've really changed things in the way the Irish look at rugby and the way they want to play rugby currently. And going back to what Hugh said, it's all about volume for them. It's all about those ruck entries, ball rotation or recycling is quite important. And Jade, as you said as well, it's all about the how many rucks those guys are hitting every single time, and also that first 10 to 15 minutes, which is something that they've really mastered, on how quick the ruck speed is during that period. But yeah, we've seen so much of that in the past, let's say maybe 5 to 10 years, and hopefully they stick with this. But then now you need to create or have certain players that can really adapt to this type of rugby that they play, and obviously grow within that aspect. But yeah, it's a very tough one to actually try and pinpoint exactly what their DNA is over the 100 years of rugby that they've played. But currently you can really see the style of play that they've adopted, and it's working really well for them. And they're starting that off from a youth level as well. And like you guys said as well, Leinster, Ulster, all their provinces are playing similar type of rugby as well as the national team, but not 100% identical. But yeah, something similar to that. Going into Scotland, Hugh, your thoughts?
All my Scottish rugby friends who know me are going to have their head in their hands now. Guys, if I say to you, Scotlandy, what do you think? If I say to you, same old Scotland, what do you think? It's unfortunately not a team that has had meaningful success on any level in the last 25 years. They are the reigning Five Nations champions. No one can ever take that from them. In 1999. Their DNA is one good game against England and one good game against Australia per year, and then that's it. They've never. Their pack at the moment is underrated. I do think that their pack at the moment is. People don't realise how good it is and how quality some of those players are. And they do have someone in Finn Russell who is world class. They've got someone in Blair Kinghorn who is world class. Their wingers are very, very good. Their centres functional. I wouldn't go any further than that, to be honest. I'm not really sure what their DNA is, to be honest, because they've never had a golden era. They've never had a thing where it worked and you could say, yes, this is what Scotland looked like when they're doing it right. They've tried to be a running Jouet team under Townsend for a few years, and then recently they've gone to being a we play without the ball team under Townsend for the most recent Six Nations. Maybe that's Scotland's problem. Maybe they don't necessarily have as defined a DNA, because when you talk about nations' DNA, you talk about South Africa, for example, you can say exactly what that DNA is. You talk about France, you can say what that is. I'm just not sure you can say it about Scotland, I'm afraid.
Yeah. Interesting. Jade, you calling them the South African B team? Sorry?
Yeah, I think half of their team's DNA is, playing hard up front, being physical, being frontal, in your face. But those are also Africans, so I don't think the other Scottish guys know what the DNA is. But no, listen, I'm so new of this. I don't know what their DNA is. And you said now that the golden generation is not sure of it, because I'm trying to think back, with Scott Hastings and Gavin Hastings and Red Path and those guys. They weren't really... To me, you never ever feared playing against Scotland, home or away, any nation. But when was the golden era? I think now is the golden era, guys. I think this is Scotland's golden era now. This is the strongest. I think this is arguably one of the strongest teams in the history, and they still haven't achieved anything. Honestly, I think that, because if you look at the game where it is, and for me, the big problem is they caught in two minds, like you said. Now they're focusing on the game plan is now more without the ball than with the ball. When they had dangerous runners from the back, like your Stuart Hoggs and those guys, they were more of a counter-attack team, So I don't know what their DNA is, but what I can think of Scotland and always of there is they're passionate, playing at Murrayfield, passionate, flower of Scotland, playing in the background, national anthems, bagpipes. It's always been nice and, to watch Scotland. I mean, every rugby player, these two teams that we mentioned today, actually both of them as the two nicest, national anthems that every team, actually, every rugby supporter likes to listen to, Island's Call and Flower Scotland. So I think for Scotland, they play a lot on passion. They play a lot on pride. That's why they tend to beat England a lot. But in terms of an out-and-out DNA, I don't know what is their DNA. And yeah, I would actually say that, they are now in their golden generation, but they've won absolutely nothing.
Yeah. It's a difficult one. I think you also mentioned something quite nice there with regards to, I remember just post-COVID, or actually, let's go pre-COVID, when Vern Cotter was there and Townsend was the assistant coach, and I think Cotter tried to get them to play a certain style of rugby with a lot of ball in hand, and they never kicked a lot during that period. And I think when Townsend took over, he also kind of implemented that, and then closer to the World Cup 2021, 22. 23, then they kicked it more often because that's what the game wanted, obviously, or warranted in terms of style of play. And they defended quite a lot, and which is something that why do I call him Scott Townsend? Gregor Townsend has implemented. But in terms of understanding their type of rugby for the past 100 years, there's nothing I can remember. Like Jade said, no one has ever feared playing Scotland unless you were South Africa in that group of death. But yeah, none other than that, I don't think Scotland has really troubled anyone besides England, to be honest. Maybe France a couple of times recently, but other than that, you just said now, they're the reigning 5 Nations champions back in 1999, and post that, we've seen nothing, basically. They're chasing 30 years of no silverware within that particular Six Nations element. So I don't know what...
no silverware. They actually play for a cup every single game that they play.
Yeah, man, not the Calcutta Cup. Come on. Yeah. I get it. But at the end of the day, I think at some point they probably want to win as Six Nations at some point, to be honest. But you look at the caliber of players they've got within URC. If Warriors are performing at the way they are currently, and we saw what that did, or we saw what Benetton did when they were on form and translated that form into URC, and Scotland have struggled to transform their URC performance, because Glasgow Warriors were number one for probably 3/4 of this competition, and they never translated that form into the Six Nations. So yeah, I look at things like that and I think to myself, how can they, if they are performing so well, because Glasgow are going to probably play in a semi-final, I think, of this competition, how can they convert that into the national team? Or unless Franco Smith is going to be the national coach of Scotland and implement a few things. Jade, what do you think, Franco Smith from Bloemfontein to Scotland national coach?
I think so. I think it's going to happen. I think he will take over from, especially with Rassie, going for another 4 years now. I think it's a possibility that Franco Smith might just get the job there, or even a guy like Dave Rennie. He's also been at the Warriors a few times, not a few times previously. He's done well there as well, so he could even slot in there as well as a Scotland coach. But I do also know that there will be another South African, and I think he'll play fly off will move to Scotland soon. Maybe he'll be the long-term replacement for Finn Russell when he does hang up his boots. But yeah, that's been Scotland. I mean, there's been more questions, or there's you're unsure in terms of what their game plan is, what their style is, what's best for them. But I think a guy like Franco Smith would be perfect for them because he has that ability to use what's best and what resources he has best at his disposal. Because I've seen it firsthand when he came into a union or a varsity cup team like the Shimlers, who has been there and thereabout, and he took a team. He took the under 21 team, and he went into the City League final that year, and then next year he took that same under 21 team, and with Oxenchair and all of those guys, and they went on and won the Varsity Cup. And next year, those same guys, basically the bulk of those guys, won the Currie Cup, and that's how he made his name. And that's what he's good at, using his current resources that he has that he has, and from there, he turns him into better players. So definitely, if I was Scotland, I would keep an eye on, Franco Smith being their coach.
Fair enough. Hugh, final thoughts of everything we've discussed, or there's any new thoughts or something that has come up?
Well, just on the coach of Scotland, I do think it is time to make a change. And I came to that conclusion when I was, doing all the stats of the Six Nations, and I'm thinking Scotland's team is actually all right. It's got a lot of cohesion. It's got, I don't know it's not maybe had favourable fixtures, but I just feel like Warren Gatland would have gotten a Six Nations title out of this Scotland team. Would have gotten one. If Warren Gatland had been Scotland's coach for 10 years, I think he would have gotten one Six Nations title out of them. And he's not the only coach who would have done that. I think there's lots of ones who could have done the same. So if it's Franco Smith, he's done a great job at Glasgow Warriors. Dave Rennie was coach of Glasgow last time they won the league, or when they came close to winning the league, they were top for a long time. Maybe Dave Rennie would be a good fit for them as well. I just think Gregor, it hasn't worked. It's time to move on.
You quickly on that you mentioned now that Warren Gatland might be the perfect, or he might have won something with the Scottish team. Do you and Scoop feel like we're being a tad bit unfair with the Scotland team? Because we look at the last 4 years, I mean, Ireland and France has been the top two teams in the world, before this World Cup. So I don't think, maybe Scotland in the previous era, maybe 4 years earlier with this team would have won the Six Nations. But now when they're playing against this France and this Irish team, do we think we're being a little bit unfair in terms of that?
Maybe, but at the same time, I can point to you games. Their games against Ireland and France in the most recent Six Nations were actually quite close. And I can point to you things in those games that they did wrong, quite obvious things that they did wrong that is fixable. So that's kind of the thing with Scotland. I mean, they lost that game to Italy just purely on mindset, as far as I'm concerned. They completely just lost their heads. So for me, yes, Ireland and France are both great. I'm not disputing that, but it's in Scotland's hands, I think, to be performing better than they are.
Yeah, they were very close this year, actually. I think against France, if it wasn't for that, was it a last try that was disallowed?
Yeah, it was the last try that was disallowed. Scotland were mostly good in most of their games. The fact that you got to the end of the Six Nations and Scotland had only won 2 games was a bit of a shock. It was like, how I watched this team and they were pretty good for a lot of the time. It's just they managed to dig themselves a hole somehow.
Yeah, fair enough. Jade, final thoughts?
No, like you said, they also their mindset. But on these two teams, to complete, one team has been stuck, with that. In Scotland has been stuck with that cloud of, we're not sure of their DNA, not sure which way they're going. In the other team in the last decade or so has actually established a DNA that we can associate them with in Ireland. So actually, if Scotland can start to do that, what Ireland did in establishing DNA, then maybe, they might win silverware. And in silverware, what we're speaking of is, winning the Six Nations or Grand Slam, or, getting far in the World Cup. That's what we're talking of, being successful.
Yeah, fair enough. Thank you very much, guys, for your input today. Looking forward to next week. And before we go, Hugh, final thoughts.
I just want to give a shout out to two things. First, I want to give a shout out to Canada women winning in New Zealand, in Christchurch, beating the Black Ferns for the first time ever.
Wow.
Canada is still not a fully professional team, and they were Pacific 4 champions this season. Absolutely incredible for them. They beat USA, Australia, and the Black Ferns. A fantastic result for them. I also want to give a shout out for the article I've dropped in the comments to this, which everyone can go look at. If you like our friend, our absent colleague Vuyo, I did an interview with him talking about his time at the Southern Kings and chronologing the story of the Southern Kings and their win against the Ospreys, which is 5 years ago, which was the Southern Kings' last ever win. If you want to find out where those 23 players who beat the Ospreys in the Southern Kings' last ever win, where they are now, you can read that article and find out. Some of them are playing in America, some of them are playing in France. One of them is even playing in Hong Kong. So check it out.
Fantastic. Check that out, gents. It's also under Hugh Griffin's handle on Twitter as well. Yeah, you can follow us, Jade Craig, at Jade Craig, or what is it? At Jade Craig 77. And then you can follow Hugh, is at Hugh Griffin Rugby on Twitter, guys. Thank you very much once again. Fantastic Sunday, and obviously we have some sun. No heat wave, unfortunately, like in Bloemfontein. But yeah, I'll go and enjoy a wee bit of sun with maybe a nice bubbles at this point in time. Gentlemen, thanks once again. Have a wonderful Sunday. Have a great week ahead. I'll be posting some sound bites during the week of all these interesting topics that we discussed today. Have a great Sunday. Have a great week. Cheers, guys. Bye.
Cheers, everybody. Cheers.